Hey everyone, I'm Royal.
I'm Vanessa.
And this is Exposed New York City Apartment Horror Story Edition.
Ooh, you guys are getting a very relatable content if you're in New York, and if you're not and thinking about moving to New York, this will be you.
yeah.
Because you're not a real New Yorker if you haven't had some kind of horror story about like an apartment, a roommate, some kind of living situation.
Some bad thing. Also, subscribe, okay? Like the video. We would appreciate if you like the podcast, okay? I don't know, maybe comment something like, wow, these stories are so amazing and cool. You guys are super cool and amazing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or like Vanessa looks really good in this one.
Yeah, we're not wearing the same stuff from last week because we're definitely not pre-recording this, but anyways.
Anything for that content for you guys. We're just a little content factory.
Literally. Should I hop into mine?
Yeah, I'm going to let Royal take the wheel on this one because it gets pretty crazy.
I have an insane story. Okay, so jumping right into it, I move into this apartment in Williamsburg, which, if you don't know, that's in Brooklyn. It's like this nice area of Brooklyn. And it was during the pandemic. It was 2020. Ooh. So I was getting like a deal, $1,200 a month for literally a closet. Like so small, nothing there. I remember getting there and I was like so depressed. I was like, I'd just gotten off the plane in New York and I was like, what did I do? I can't believe
this was your first apartment to New York, right?
First room. I remember my mom calling me and I was like trying not to like tear up because I was like, what did I just do? I wasn't even 18. Yeah. I was 17. It was like 2 weeks before my 18th birthday. And so, fast forward, I'm looking for jobs. That was like August. Fast forward to end of September. I think it was October by then. And I had that apartment for 6 months. I was in the lease for 6 months. And literally I was like, how do I get out of this? Because I paid the $1,200 and I was like, oh my God, I am going to be living on pennies. I'm going to be living on like nothing.
Yeah.
I had zero money. I had nobody to ask for money. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be having to eat like
ramen noodles.
Rationing.
Yeah.
And I had just gotten a job at Target. And I was like probably on the second week of my training maybe. And it was like a Friday. All of a sudden, hear a knock at the door. Open the door. It's a guy. And he goes, oh, hey, so I'm trying to get a head count for the Red Cross for this building. How many people are here? And we're like, what do you mean head count for the Red Cross? And he was like, oh, well, this building is being condemned. And we were like, what? What do you mean? He was like, yeah, we've been trying to tell the landlord for 7 or 8 months that this building is structurally unstable and that it is like not habitable. And we're like, what are you talking about? We didn't know any of this. Turns out you look through the doorway of the apartment and it's tilted. You literally can see how the whole apartment is tilted. And we go, oh my God. Mind you, about a week and a half before this, my roommate, who was like a model, gets super pissed off because I think he had ordered like super nice shoes from like Essence or the Real. And a homeless guy who apparently like had the key code to our apartment was stealing packages in like the vestibule, in like the entryway. And he'd like stolen my packages. So my roommate like freaks out and he's like, we're going down there. We're going to the basement. We're going to get him. He brings a bat. And I'm like, what is about to happen? I'm like videoing because I'm like, listen, I got a package. I had these like teeth whitening like retainers.
Yeah, you're ready. You're ready to go to life and death for these teeth. These retainers.
Off. No, literally, he's pissed off. He breaks down the door of like the basement garden level. There's like smells horrible. There's a city bike in one corner. There's a bunch of like dirty clothes on the second corner. Then there's a big pile of mail. It's got my mail. It's got my roommate's mail. He never got the boots back. They were these like $600 boots that just were stolen. Anyways, that had just happened. Fast forward a week later, this guy is telling us, you're going to have to leave this apartment either tonight or like a sheriff is going to come early in the morning at like 7 a.m. and seal up this apartment so it's illegal to come in until they fix it. And then he looks at me and my roommates and goes, listen, I have to tell you, usually these landlords, they don't fix this stuff for like years. So he's like, you better get all your stuff out by tonight. I'm like freaking. I'm literally like, this isn't real. This isn't happening.
Yeah. You don't have any money to get out. This is horrible.
I'm not joking. Literally, we were supposed to pay rent that day or the next day, and I hadn't paid rent yet.
Oh my
so
God.
I was like, oh my God. What ends up happening is I like call my parents. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Thankfully, I knew somebody with a car. So I call them up going like, oh my God, listen, hey, I need to like use your car to put every single one of my belongings in from my room. And thankfully, since the room was so small, I was like able to pack everything up. And we like, me and the rest of my roommates, first of all, we're all freaking out trying to be like, where do we go? The guy tells us, the city guy who knocked on our door goes, the Red Cross is going to put you up in a hotel, but I think they're going to do it until Monday. He was like, usually they only put people in for like a night or two, but they're going to put you in until Monday because it's like about to be the weekend. We call up the leasing office. We're cussing them out. We're yelling at them. What the fuck is going on? Like, this is insane. We're literally being kicked out of our apartment. I'm about to be homeless. And they're trying to get us to sign a lease or not a lease, but like, a lease for a room up in Harlem. And I'm like,
You're from Williamsburg to Harlem. Like, yeah, let me just shift my entire life.
And it's like East Harlem in like a crazy area. And yeah, I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm like telling my roommates, do not sign any lease. I'm not signing another lease with the people who literally is like apartment is getting condemned. Like, no way.
Also, $1,200 should be enough for a reasonable room.
So crazy. And so I'm freaking out. I'm literally being like, this is not happening, but literally packing up all my stuff so fast. The whole building, which it was like 4 floors or 5 floors, and I was at the top. And like, just an apartment on each floor. And the people like on the first floor were like, oh my God, some guy just moved in and we can't get a hold of him. Like he's at work or something. So then
that would be me. Like, I don't answer my phone.
No, but
oh my God.
We go downstairs and there's a thing on the door that says this apartment has been condemned. And like any entrance after it has been sealed is unlawful. And I'm just going, what the hell? So I call the person I know who has a car. I go like, oh my God, can you help me? Also, before that, I call my uncle who's an attorney and I go, what's going on here? Can you like, do I have any legal recourse? Like, we're documenting everything. We're like writing statements in our notes app being like, this is causing me severe emotional distress because we go downstairs to the outside of the building in the alleyway. You can see where there's total cracks and like crumbling foundation.
Oh gosh.
And we're like, oh my God, this like could have come down. What ends up happening is the Red Cross puts me in this hotel in the middle of Hasidic Williamsburg. So like Hasidic Jewish Williamsburg, where if you don't know, like the Hasidic Jewish people, like very Orthodox, and they have very specific laws that they abide by.
Super conservative.
Yes, like very letter of the law. You got to wear specific things. Can only, super kosher, all these things. And it was during a Jewish holiday, and I was like a 25 minute walk away from the train. And so no stores are open. No stores for food are open because they're all Jewish stores and they're all closed for the holidays. So I'm like living off of, for like 2 days, I'm living off of the vending machine. But thankfully they like giving me like a $50 food card, which I was like, okay, definitely.
Dude, shout out the Red Cross. Well, like they really came in clutch there.
And then I remember going to like this store and buying like cup of noodles, buying like oatmeal and like a packet, things that I could like make at a hotel, because I was like,
this is though like such an emotional duress because finding a new apartment in New York
Literally.
takes so much time. It's so competitive.
I'm like having to tell people like, if you know anybody with a room, like
Yeah.
that's also furnished, because I
You
didn't
didn't
have
have
anything. I had
So
zero.
what did you just brought, like what you got up basically off of the plane with you? Like what did you have?
I luckily hadn't thrown away like one of the gigantic suitcases that I had. So I was just shoving everything in it. I was shoving everything in a backpack, in a duffel bag I had, in like a laundry bag.
Just like a one day, like just a few, like vacate tonight is crazy.
Literally.
If that happened to me now, I don't know what I would do.
I was in like shock. And then I remember that night sitting on, just laying on the bed of the hotel room being like, this isn't real. Like, this only happens in movies. Like,
Yeah.
I can't believe this is happening to me right now. Like, calling up everybody I know and being like, okay, it was either Thursday or Friday night, being like, I'm only here basically until Monday morning. So, like, I need to figure out something quick. Texting everybody I know. And I didn't know a lot of people.
Yeah.
I literally,
2 weeks.
I literally didn't know, like, anybody there except maybe people from my work. And I was just like, oh my God, like, what can I do? I'm like having to, I literally still have to go into work. The day that I was leaving, I had to tell my boss, I can't go to work. The next day, I think maybe I called out the next day too. But then like Sunday and Monday, I was still going to work, you know?
Oh my God. I'm like stressed just hearing this.
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Because like you don't have money, friends, or family there, or anyone. Because like even now, if I was trying to find a room, like I'd have to spend a minute looking, like calling friends, because like to get a deal that's like livable here, you have to like know somebody or find like an apartment deal of a lifetime, you know?
And I just remember being like, this is the craziest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And I can't go home. I can't afford a plane ticket home. Like, that is not happening. But I literally was in there being like, I have nowhere to live right now.
Yeah.
And so Monday rolls around. I have to leave this hotel. Insane luck. My sister worked at a Marriott. And she was able to get me like a $40 a night room from her discount at a Marriott in like Herald Square.
Yeah.
So then I have to take all my things up to Herald Square for like 2 nights. Thankfully, I think Sunday night, I had a lead on an apartment of this girl I knew who was like, hey, this girl I know is moving back to like Utah or something.
Shout out Utah.
Yeah, random. And she's leaving a dresser, she's leaving a desk, and she's leaving a bed frame.
Oh.
And she's just gonna, like, I hadn't talked to the girl yet, but she like knew my friend knew my predicament and said this to the girl. And so they knew I was like having to rush into this.
Mm-hmm. And
so I just remember going on a FaceTime with my friend, her name's Hikaru, and these 2 other roommates, just being like, hey,
please,
Royal, like, please, like,
not to sound desperate, but can I live in your house?
I'm a good person. I'm very clean. Like, my apartment just got condemned. I'm like really looking for a place. And then I'm on the phone with the girl who was leaving, and she's like, you know what? You can just have all the things. And I was like, oh my God.
That is so nice.
I literally was like, thank you so much. You don't understand how much, like, I had zero. I probably had like, besides my rent, $100 because I just gotten this job at Target.
Yeah.
And I like had a deficit of like 3 weeks where I like wasn't gonna get paid.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So I was like, like the Red Cross $50 card saved my ass.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, holy shit, now I have to like, I had $100 because I was like, I have to also spend money to buy a bed.
Yeah. And
so I'm like, again, in shock, this whole thing. I'm like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, financially moving to New York,
oh my God,
is so difficult.
And I was like, I have to put down a security deposit. Thankfully, we were all screaming at these leasing office people, and they were like, listen, you can come in on Tuesday and you can get your security deposits in the form of check.
good. Oh my
Which,
God.
you know how these companies
Yeah,
are in
normally
New
they
York?
don't give you that shit back. Not normally, but they're infamous for stealing your money.
Or they will hold it for as long as they can, which is like 30 days. And legitimately, like, I just I went out of that experience being like, I can survive anything now. I survived literally my apartment being condemned and having to move out in a night. And just like in shock, being like, okay, what am I going to do now? I can't ultra freak out. I have to just keep going. And again, it's just a crazy feeling. It's just a crazy feeling of laying in this random ass hotel in the middle of Hasidic Williamsburg, like 20 minutes away from the train, having to like still go to work and be ultra stressed out, like texting just anybody who I barely know, just being like, do you know anybody? Do you know anybody who's in the area? Yeah. And that was like my welcome to New York moment. That was like my Broad City.
I was gonna say, like, this is the welcome to New York, like, very rude awakening.
Well, and this whole time, I'm going to work at the 34th Street Herald Square Target, which is the worst area ever. I'm leaving at like 11 o'clock at night, seeing the most insane things, like having the craziest introduction to New York.
Yeah, that area still gives me culture shock after being here for like 7 years. I like, anytime I'm in like Herald Square, Times Square, it's like you see people with like needles. It's like, oh my God.
It's so insane. But I survived, and I have a great,
great story for the pod.
That was 5 years ago. No, and I'm like, my apartment arrangement has been significantly better. And because I moved my first year here, I moved 3 times.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Which, oh my God. Like, so that's one of my many insane stories. You go on to one of yours. I
know. I have so many. I'm trying to like think, but I think like the big one that comes to mind was the second apartment I lived in. Like when I first came to New York was for college, and I had dorms then. And at the time when I was in dorms, I like continued to live on with my roommates from the dorms and some friends. And somehow that was the worst experience of my life. Like I still like going through rehashing all of this is like almost traumatizing.
Oh no.
But when we signed that lease, it was like me and 2 friends. I had gone with a different friend to a tarot card reader, and the tarot card reader looked at me and she goes, "You're moving." And I was like, "Yes." And she's like, "This is going to be horrible."
Oh my God.
And I had like a feeling in my heart that like sunk because I knew it. The way that we got this apartment was me and the 2 friends were supposed to go and look at this apartment together. And I was like, okay, let me go to the bathroom. And they left without me and looked at the apartment and were like, okay, great. It was wonderful. We're going to get it.
No.
So all of these things should have told me, hey, red flag alert, do not go there. And they were like, that's perfect. We love the apartment. We're going to get it.
Yeah.
And I was like, there were 2 rooms and then a fake 3rd room that was like an office with bars on the window. But the way that to split this rent, I could not afford to be in one of the other rooms. It would have been like
in the smallest room.
I had to be in the smallest room. It ended up costing me like $1,100. I could not put an air.
Where was this again?
It was in Lower East Side. It was on Avenue C and 8th, and that is a freaking
it's like Alphabet City.
Alphabet City. It is a scary neighborhood.
I've been there. I know people.
It is scary. If you go past Tompkins and start getting into Alphabets, like I do not recommend living there. And so you couldn't put an air conditioner in there. I was so hot.
Sweating.
It was
New York
like
City
100 square feet. Like I could.
When did you move in?
I can't even remember.
Was it like the summer?
It was in the summer. It was in the summer, so it was sweltering hot. Horrible. And the only thing I could fit in that room was a bed. Like, there was literally no room. I had a bed and like a really tiny dresser. And at the time I was working, it was a summer, so I was off of school, but I was in an internship and then working 2 jobs.
Oh my
so
God.
I was literally, I would get home and just fall asleep on the bed like this because I was so exhausted.
Insane.
And, you know, so many crazy things happened in that roommate dynamic. Like, the 2 friends were in love with each other. One of them had a boyfriend that was like the 4th roommate, and so it was like, genuinely, I would just like not talk to them anymore because they were so bad as roommates and like constantly giving me like so much stress. They would not clean. We had dishes piled to the faucet of the sink is how high up they were, and it would be like they would use my dishes, and so I would have to like hide them in my room under my tiny bed because they wouldn't clean them. Like, I'd have to clean everything if I wanted to cook and then put it back into my room.
I know that.
So
yeah,
that overall was a nightmare, but like, no, they wouldn't clean. I one time went in to clean the living room, and I found a full loaf of bread and 2 dead rats. So that's just like to give you the like environment of where I was living in. It was so bad and dirty, and like I'd wake up to the smell of, I don't know if I can say Mary Jane, and I'd walk out and there would be random people that they had invited just in our couch, like living room, just hanging out. And I was like, who the hell are these people? I remember one time one of the roommates was letting this runaway kid sleep on our roof. I could hear him at night, like just walk up to the rooftop, and I was like hearing footsteps. I'm like, who is this? So I definitely just wasn't feeling safe or like, oh, this is a livable space. It was disgusting. I couldn't like really live like that.
So crazy. And
so just that entire time was like very disgusting. But I went home to visit my parents for spring break. And COVID happened while I was there. So I just like couldn't go back on a plane for like 3 months. And then after that 3 months, the rent or the apartment was like, the lease was over, so I had to move out. And none of us had really been in the apartment, except I actually don't know. I wasn't really keeping up with the roommates. Because at that time, because of that whole scenario, I was like just trying to keep to myself and not be involved. But I knew they were coming in and out of the apartments to get their stuff and move out and do whatever. And I had seen on their Instagram, one of the guy roommate was there, and he looked a little bit out of it. And I was like, okay. So I come back. I'm going up the stairs of this apartment, and my heart is like pounding. I don't know like why, but I was just like scared to see the condition of what I was about to walk into, because they were notorious for like going into my room, letting their friends stay in my bed.
That's so
the
insane.
Amount of times I would come back into my room and the sheets were all ripped off, like my clothes were all on the floor, and it was just like, they would have jewel pods everywhere and things like that were like, what are you guys going through my stuff? So violating. And they would go through my personal things and be like, oh, we found this in there. I was like, what the So I was so scared to see what was about to go on in there. So I opened the door, and my friend and I literally like our mouths drop because it reeks of smoke. Like, not like any kind of Mary Jane smoke. It's like something was burned. So I walk into the kitchen. There is a giant purple stain on the floor. And then there's all these bits of burned paper everywhere. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I was cleaning the oven because for some reason it was like completely charred. And I find a burned cross in there.
What?
I was like,
What was going on?
The hell? And so then I'm like doing further investigating.
What's someone doing like Santeria or something?
I have no idea what was going on, but like all I can think of is like, you know, the roommates that were a little out of it due to some kind of
substance that was harder than the green.
Yeah, I'll just say like it's But I am like looking around and I find a bucket that is covered in like a towel behind our couch. And I'm like, what the? I lift it up and I look down. It's like a Home Depot bucket. It's this giant tub. And from the bottom to about halfway, it's filled with maggots. And I just like scream. They're like swarming around in there. No. And I'm like, what the fuck is my life going? Like, what is happening in here? Because the roommates that while we were texting were like, oh, I was in there and I cleaned everything. And I was like,
what did
yeah.
you clean?
No, well, I was like, yeah, right. You've never cleaned for the past year that we've lived here, but sure. And like, my heart had been pounding so bad before walking in. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God.
And so I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back. Like, I'm really like frightened at this point. And like, thankfully nothing is wrong with my room. My room's fine. But at this point, I'm like, okay, I need to see what's going on in the other rooms because I want my security deposit back.
Yeah.
And the entire time we lived there, like, I hadn't really been talking to the girl there. And then the guy I had felt a bit bad for because I just knew, like, things were going on in his life. Mm-hmm. And he was in and out of it. Things were not going well for him. But, like, he was a good person, you know? So he would come hang out in my room and we'd hang out. But, like, he would always say, you're not allowed in my room. And this time I was like, no, I need to know what the fuck's going on. Because, like, I want my security deposit back. I don't know what the hell you have going on in the rest of this place. Absolutely. There's a burned cross in my freaking oven. What's going on? So I walk in there. I open the door. And the first thing that hits me is the smell. It's like putrid. It's like dead body in there. And half of the wall is caved in with black mold.
No.
Black mold.
Don't even.
I'm not even kidding. Like, it's from the ceiling and we were on the top floor. The whole wall is covered in black mold.
Literally horror movie.
And I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? I have been living here for a year. You're with
like,
you.
I wonder why I've been having headaches.
I was feeling sick. And I was like, are you kidding me? You knew about this the whole time?
My God.
And then I look on his desk. It's filled with whatever this thing in a little baggie is, and I was just like, oh my God,
way.
Are you and then I'm texting angrily in the group chat like, why would you not tell me that there's black mold in our apartment? And he goes, it's fine, the landlord knows about it.
What?
I was like, excuse me?
That you can't spray some bleach on there? Like, that
excuse
is so
me?
insane.
Like, are you kidding me? And it also, the rest of the room just like horrifying, like covered in like tobacco and just like the scariest thing you've ever seen in your life. But like the freaking mold, like I was so like
the
just
way
shocked.
Some people live. Like,
well, I was just so shocked. I'm like, what do you mean the landlord knows about this? Which just another landlord horror story.
Yeah.
But like from this apartment, another like few red flags when we were moving in to get our keys. I'm calling the landlord like, hey, my name's Vanessa, and he cuts me off. He's like, oh, sweetheart, are you the one that called about the rats? And I was like, no, I'm trying to get my keys.
You're like, dude, why would you say
that?
And
he's like, yeah, your keys.
There's no rats here, though.
Anyway. Yeah, probably not at your place. He was like, you can pick up your keys from the laundromat down the street. And I was like, excuse me? And he goes, you'll also, you can leave your rent checks there.
Okay, that happened to me where the building I was in Bed-Stuy, they changed, whatever, like, property managers, and they had me do that. They had me take my check to the bodega on the corner.
Every day I would, every month I would take my $1,000 and give it all the money I had. All the money I had.
Legitimately, every time rent came up, it was so much.
And I would drop it off at the laundromat because they owned it. And one time I went to the leasing office and met them face to face, and it's this group of Russian guys, and they were smoking cigars in there. And like, I swear to God, like it's like known thing that whole block is like owned by Russian mob.
Oh my
and
God.
I'm pretty sure we're like that our landlords were mob. But anyway, the mold came from upstairs. They had just a pipe that was like an open pipe coming into the room.
That is so insane.
So like anytime it would rain, it would just go drip all over the room. And I was supposed to go into that room, but like then I couldn't afford it and moved into the other room.
Oh God!
And I was like,
blessing in disguise, maybe. Like,
I don't know.
None of it was blessing.
I was just like, that ending, like of course it ended like that. Maggots, mob owned, and I found like I was looking online and I saw that the place 2 weeks later was back up on like the market. So all they did was just like paint over the mold.
That is so insane.
Mm-hmm.
That is so insane. Yeah. I guess I didn't finish up my building that got condemned. They boarded up the windows. I came back a year later. It looked like people had broken in. Came back a year later. Building wasn't there. They demolished it.
Oh my gosh.
They demolished the building.
Wow.
Anyways, I think that's
that's everything.
Short little episode. We had 2 little stories for ya.
Yeah, 2 out of a million. I had multiple break-ins.
This will not be the last NYC horror story.
If you guys want more of this, we can definitely give you more. But Royal's gotta hop on a plane. And so we gotta get out of here. But thank you guys so much for watching.
Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. Follow
MF.
Motherfucker, follow MF, and we'll see you next week for another episode. Bye.